crimes. The sheriff isn't the only elected official to speak out against the new policy. A local mayor in San Diego County is also publicly voicing his opposition in a video message on X.
This is really super tone deaf. If you consider what just happened in the last election, most of America wants this border crisis to be resolved. I think that when you're an elected official, you have an obligation to stand by the rule of law. And if the federal government wants to enforce immigration policy, it is up to us to cooperate.
While the border
Okay, that is what's happening here in San Diego County. Hello, Gary. Is it just you, Gary? It's day after Christmas. I know I didn't even have a title for this show. Gina, our stalwart producer, was asking for a title, and I was right in the middle of a day where we not only opened presents and celebrated Christmas, we hosted about 8 or 9 people for Christmas dinner, and it was not even a chance. There was not even, and then the toilet handle broke. So yesterday was quite a busy day, and Gina asked me what my topic was, and I said, I haven't even had a chance to think about it. Sorry. So we're just going to do an open chat. But what I just played, that was the mayor of El Cajon, California, who was an old friend of mine. Years ago, I went to church with Mayor Wells, Billy Wells, and he was a good guy, and no one ever thought he'd ever get in politics, and he ended up being the mayor of one of the biggest cities here in the county. And he's probably the best. He's definitely the best mayor in the county, and he's quite a guy. What he's talking about there is standing up to specifically the county board of supervisors here, which traditionally, if you don't know San Diego County, there's a large military presence here, and that's made it always one of the most conservative big city in California. But California is California, and San Diego County in the last 10, 15 years has been steadily turning blue, more and more Democrat. And sure enough, the county board of supervisors was a majority Republican board for years, but this last election, it flipped to Democrat control. And this is how the Republican Party is in California too. During the lockdown and all this stuff here, the Republican majority on the county was very weak. There was really only one supervisor that stood up and said, let the people decide whether or not they should cover their faces or get a certain shot. And the rest just completely caved to everything that was being thrown at them. And it was very disappointing to a lot of people. And so effectively, the county board of supervisors has been pretty useless and pretty, as far if you're a conservative, to stand up to anything that the state or the governor was throwing at them, the state legislature. And now the government legislature and the governor of the state have decided to be super sanctuary states. The board of supervisors voted to be a super sanctuary county, which means they will not cooperate with the incoming administration in rounding up illegals, especially including criminals, and enforcing immigration policy. They're just not going to do it. But there is one person, in addition to Mayor Wells, my friend, there's also one other person that's standing up to this, and that's the county sheriff. Kelly Martinez is her name. And she's saying, I'm not going to cooperate with this. I'm going to cooperate with federal authorities, federal immigration authorities. And so this is the California story. This is my California story for you. I know once in a while I'll throw in a California story to you guys. And Carrie, you are right. Where are you here? California is a mess. There will be more coming probably. I don't know what the situation is, but I think probably before the administration comes, there will be something like another surge of immigrants, I think. But I know that the Border Patrol is morale has probably had a real boost, and they might be, hopefully they will start defying the current administration and cooperating with the upcoming administration on this, because it is a real problem. And the same old heartstrings are being pulled about breaking up families and that kind of thing. But, you can't have an open border. You can't have lawlessness. And that's what Bill was saying there, the mayor. He's saying you have to uphold the law. And just because you've been breaking the law for 10, 20 years, however long you've been doing it, certainly for the last 4, doesn't mean you can just disregard it and disregard the will of the people. The people have spoken. Now, granted, the people of California did not speak this way, but we are a state within the United States of America, and the federal government rightly has a jurisdiction over the border, and in cooperation with local authorities, and that's the way it should be. Tell you more people will be coming today. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's just you and me, Carrie. But if it is, hey, that's fine. Hope you had a Merry Christmas, Carrie. And like I said, we had a giant party here yesterday, which is why I was completely unprepared for what we were doing today. But the show must go on, right? And but hopefully they will be coming, and hopefully they'll shout out when they do. So, but California, it's kind of what you live with here. You would think it can't get any bluer. And I think I told you about the election where the California voters, and this is the thing, it's a very liberal state, mostly Democrats. In my area and in Mayor Wells's areas of San Diego County, it's more conservative. Here we're right next to a major military base, and I think out in East County, it's just more of a rural thing. And the more rural you get, the more conservative you get, right? Because you're more independent on your own. And really, I was thinking just recently, I took our daughter to the airport early this morning, and on the way back, I was thinking, the difference between a liberal and a conservative is really an entitlement mentality. If you live independently out in a, say, more rural county where you're not right next to or right on top or right underneath a neighbor, you're just more independent, and you don't have the mentality that the government owes you anything, or that your neighbor owes you anything. You tend to take more responsibility for yourself. It's just the way it is. So the further you get away from a city, the more conservative it gets. And if you look at an election map of the United States, that completely bears out. Major cities are heavily blue. San Diego, up until I think 2018, was a red city, a very unusual city. And it was mainly because of the military presence. San Diego has major Navy bases downtown. The original movie Top Gun was about the Naval Air Station at Coronado, North Island Naval Air Station, where Top Gun School was. And Miramar was where Top Gun School is. which was a Navy base, now is a Marine base. So it's Miramar, but there's also a major base on Coronado. That's where they did a lot of filming of the of the bar scenes and the beach scenes was Coronado in that movie. But so there's two major air bases here. There's a two major ship bases. There's 3 or 4 aircraft carriers in San Diego Bay all the time. And then up my way, we have Camp Pendleton, which is a gigantic Marine base. So that's always kept San Diego County more to the right. But after the Cold War was over and governments started spending less on the military, the so-called peace dividend, Republicans weren't smart back then because they closed a major air base, El Toro Marine Air Base up in Orange County. If you ever saw Independence Day, you know that Will Smith was based in El Toro. And that was a major Marine base that kept Orange County, which is north of us. It kept that a red county. And when that base closed, Orange County started immediately going blue. And I think that's kind of what's happening here. They really haven't closed any of the major military bases, but and what are you asking me, Carrie? Oh yeah. Yes, that's right. So you had a good Christmas. Good. What is it? So many words can explain the difference: entitled, lazy, brainwashed, very sad, but this is how we've lived. And that's, it's really what I think I always go back to my parents, and we're World War II generation. And a lot of people call them the greatest generation, but I'm not. They did the greatest thing probably in winning World War II, but afterwards, and you really can't blame them for doing this. They came out of that war with the mindset that our children will never go through what we went through. And therefore, they made sure life was as easy as possible for us baby boomers. And we turned around and passed that on to our children. And this kind of idea that you should have no trouble in life, you should have no challenges in life, and then everybody will take care of you. Your parents will take care of you. The government will take care of you. Schools will take care of you. Everybody has this mindset that everyone will take care of them. And that's what we could look at this, accuse the government of everything we want. We can accuse, different Democratic Party, whatever, but we have done that. And maybe it's inevitable. Maybe it comes with prosperity, that we tend to think once the challenges are taken away from you, maybe this is inevitable. Maybe Trump should open more military bases in California. That would be a good idea. I hope so. But it would be hard to get those military bases back. I know the land that had El Toro on is now completely developed over, but there's spare land everywhere in California. But you have to go pretty far east. And I think I've told you this before. California is divided into two distinct parts, and it's not north and south. It's not Northern California and Southern California. It's coastal California and the rest. There's about a 10 to 15 mile belt from the Pacific Ocean, probably to the mountains in LA and maybe the valley up in Northern California. And down here, it's probably about that too, maybe 20 miles. That's very, very, very liberal. The rest of California, the part of California that feeds the nation, and is not part of the big cities, is more rural, is very red. And that again follows the national model. It follows the entitlement attitude model. Um, Again, the closer you are, and I think that's one reason why another part of the California story is low income, low cost housing that is springing up everywhere. Everyone says people are leaving California, but yet in San Diego County, anyways, there's nothing but new condos and new apartments and new homes going up. And they're all very, very close together. And they want to create these high density living areas with that are close to some kind of rail. So people will be concentrated in a small area, and they will depend on rail for the transportation. And if you think about it, that's a perfect model for the left wing worldview. People will be more will be easier to control. They'll be more like-minded. If you're living right on top of someone and right next to someone, and you're always with them, that it's a collectivist. It creates a collectivist mentality. Whereas if you're more rural and you're further away from your neighbor, you're more independent. You're more individualistic. And it's funny, the more individualistic you are, the better your relations are with your neighbor, and the more communal you are, the less cordial you are there, the less you know. Big cities are much more violent than rural areas. People get along, don't get along as well, because they're also not dependent on each other. The closer, when you're concentrated in one area in this communal living situation or high density living situation, city services take care of everything. And it's easier for them to do that. It's easier for the fire department or water and power. They're all going to the same place. You need less infrastructure. And it's easier you're much more dependent on the city, put it that way. If you're out in rural, you're dependent on yourself, but you're also dependent on your neighbor. In the old days, if your barn caught on fire, all the other people came running with buckets, right? So that way you better be friends with them. You better be friends with that neighbor, a couple hundred yards away, because when you need them, then they'll come. But if you don't have a good relationship with them, and if you don't come running to them with a bucket of water when their barn's on fire, you're not going to it's not going to go well for you. So it's an interesting dynamic, but that's what's happening in California. They're trying to stress low income housing and higher density living. And I was just talking to people last night, and this comes up all the time. Why doesn't California have high speed, better public transportation? Well, because we're too spread out. It wouldn't work. California, there's too much land here, and the freeways have been, built up over the years. About 100 years ago, that's just kind of the way California went through a lot of political machinations. Yes, but high-speed rail could work on a limited basis here, but the big reason it doesn't go is because it costs just a prohibitive amount of money. Like 16 years ago or 17 years ago, we passed this proposition for high-speed rail. There was going to be a high-speed bullet train between LA or San Diego and San Francisco, San Diego, LA, San Francisco, going up the coast and back. And I think it was going to cost $40 billion back then. And now it hasn't even been hardly built. I think they may have a few miles of track in the valley, the San Joaquin Valley, but nobody's using it, and you can't get anywhere because it's something like $100 million a mile or some ridiculous thing like that. So it'll never happen. I mean, San Diego has a little trolley system, but I just heard on the radio today it's losing money. It just doesn't work, and people are too dependent on their car, because in your car you get right to where your destination at your time schedule, not the train's time schedule. There's not a homeless person on the train with you threatening you or doing something else unpleasant, right? So there's this tension, this battle, the government trying to collectivize and get everybody communally living in a state that was developed for people to just get up and go. So it's a lot of tension here. So what are you saying, Carrie? Okay, so you grew up with someone who had that mentality. My kids won't live like that. In the long run, it's about bad outcome. I think it is. My dad and mom would always talk about, why are kids the way they are? When we were young, we didn't have a lot of things, and we appreciated things more. And I said, yeah. And you made sure we had everything, and you wonder why we don't appreciate it. You made sure that we were completely different people than you are. And you wonder why we see things different. But that, I think, that's parenting 101. That's just the mindset you have to have. You want the best for your kids. So, yeah, I think public transportation is a great idea in a city. It just makes sense. It is. Every time we go we were just in Chicago over the summer, and we rode the subway a lot, but we had our next door neighbor is an old Chicago cop, and he kind of gave us the lay of the land. But one thing he told us, he goes, do not ride a train at night in Chicago. It's too dangerous. I don't know. I keep hearing stories of the subways in New York becoming more dangerous. Back in the day, back in the 80s, they were very dangerous. And in New York, a famous guy, Bernard Goetz, got a gun and shot some kids that were threatening him. And then again, the urban areas kind of got cleaned up about 20, 30 years ago. They started cleaning up the urban areas and things became safer. Now they're deteriorating again, and public transportation is becoming less safe. So there's always that factor too. So maybe California should make more sense when it comes to spending their tax money. Oh, from your lips, your keyboard to God's ears, Carrie. And the first thing you have to do as a parent is to realize what is really best for your children. Absolutely. And it's not about you. It's not about what makes you feel better. So you didn't have, anything growing up. Your parent, a lot of times I hear that from my people in my generation who became parents. My parents were too strict, so I didn't want to be as strict on my children. And I'm like, that's a selfish attitude on your part. It's not about you. You're only doing that so you won't feel bad. Your parents were strict with you for a reason. And because they had to be, because you were alien or you were whatever, right? We all were as kids. So that mentality of I'm not going to punish my kids. You're not doing that for the benefit of the kids. You're doing that for the benefit of yourself. So I've always seen that as kind of a selfish attitude to take. And you have to do the hard work of parenting. And usually one parent is more strict than the others. I know I was always more strict than my wife, but then again, I'm a stepfather, and her children, it was a big tension between me of disciplining the kids versus not. But it kind of worked with us. It was kind of a good cop, bad cop kind of thing where, it worked. We found middle ground, put it that way, which is what you have to do. So parents aren't meant to be your friend. Exactly. It's not, I used to tell the kids, I'm not here to be popular. This is not a popularity contest. Okay. So, but that's just kind of how it is in life. It's how it is in government. And this applies to the entitlement mentality. It all applies all the way from parenthood all the way up to the very top. You have to do the things, the tough work that makes you unpopular. And again, in politics, that's really a hard thing, because if you're unpopular in politics, you won't be in politics for long. But at the same time, there are a certain amount of people in this country that know that tough decisions have to be made and then can respect it. Hopefully that's the tide that's turning. And this last election, hopefully that was the big change. People aren't going to fall for the sob stories, especially when it deals with immigration, what we're talking about today. They're not going to fall for the sob stories of families being ripped apart. Like Tom Homan said, we can deport the whole family. You're not sending them to their deaths. You're sending them back home where they came from. And really, this is where they need to step up. And when they get home, they need to start improving their countries. The unchecked flow of people from these countries into the U.S. gave the countries where they came from a pass. They don't have to work on their society. They can be corrupt governments that just have slush funds and are just, and their people will not stand up to them, especially if all the people that want freedom are going away. And we know, and everybody knows, it's not people. The main problem at the border is not people seeking freedom. It's drugs coming across the border. It's people not from Latin America, but people from China, people from Iran, people from everywhere. That border is wide open. And people who, again, you talk about all the things that are happening. I always say everybody that wants an open border, I ask them, so are you in favor of sex trafficking then? Are you in favor of fentanyl killing 100,000 of our young people, mostly men, every year? You're okay with that? Because when you say you want an open border, that's exactly what you're saying. So, Gary, being a step parent is a tough road to travel. I give step parents much good. Well, thank you. I appreciate the kudos. I had a pretty good, for a step parent, I had a pretty good deal. I had two pretty great children. Unfortunately, their dad passed away when they were very young, and their mom wasn't really looking for anyone. But for some reason, when we met, she liked me, and she let me share. They adopted me into their family. My wife and my stepchildren adopted me into their family, and it's worked out pretty well. There was, like I said, there's always the things that go with it, but that's what makes it worthwhile. That's what makes it hard, and that's why you do the hard stuff, right? Because it's worthwhile. So, and I ended up taking our daughter to the airport this morning. Got a nice hug goodbye. She's off to visit the boyfriend for what's left of the holidays. So, so Carrie, worldwide, most of them hate us. Very dangerous ground to be standing on. Yeah. So anyway, so that's the story for today. Sorry I didn't have a better title, and hopefully everybody's recovering from a really good Christmas, and hopefully when this goes on tape, more people will see it. And but Carrie, thank you for your faithful presence always. And I think tomorrow, I think it'll just be Michael and myself. I think I got something from Ben saying that he wasn't feeling well, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. Michael and I have to come up with a subject and a title, but or we might just shoot the breeze like now. Maybe this is just the post-Christmas chill out time, right? So, Carrie, you're too kind. Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, so maybe it's just this is the after Christmas week, right? This is when nobody gets anything done, right? If you're in business, you can just count on. When I had my business, I could just count on this week being nothing. This was to get to all the tasks that I've been putting off, because I was so busy this year. Now, this next week or so till New Year's is going to be me finally getting done all the honeydews that I have to do around here. So maybe that's what it'll be like for the next couple of days here. So, Carrie, thank you for showing up, and for everybody watching on tape. We will probably be here tomorrow, like I said, and I will be here next Thursday. And maybe I'll share another California story. Maybe I'll give you an update on how the border's going. But anyways, take care. Have a happy New Year. We'll see you next week. Take care.